So let me know once you can see the screen.
I can see it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for confirmation. So welcome to the Zero to JNCIA course, where we are going to cover the first certification of Juniper. So just like in Cisco, we have different levels of certifications. Like we start with associate level CCNA, and then we have professional level CCNP, and then we go to the expert level, which is CCIE. Similarly, in Juniper, the certifications follow a similar track, but slightly different in the middle. For example, the starting point in Juniper is also associate level. So the JNCIA that we are going to cover into this live class is the Juniper associate level certification. And then instead of going directly to professional, there is a step in the middle there in Juniper, which is called the specialist. So JNCIS is the specialist certification that you need to pass before you can actually attempt the JNCIP, which is the professional level certification. And then you have the JNCIE, which is equivalent to CCIE, the expert level certification. So in Juniper, you have 4 levels of certifications: JNCIA, JNCIS, JNCIP, and then JNCIE, where you go all the way to the expert level of configurations on the routers and switches. Now, this is the enterprise track, means we are talking about the routing and switching part. Of course, in Juniper also you can go to the security track and some other tracks as well. But this one is going to concentrate on the JNCIE enterprise or the JNCIA, which is based on Juno's introduction, right? And one thing you will notice is that although this course, the live course, is only for the JNCIA, but we have a 52 weeks pre-recorded course as well, where every week we go through different topics of JNCIA, then JNCIS, then JNCIP, and then finally for JNCIE. So it's a complete program which takes you from zero all the way to the expert level. So that's a different program. That's a pre-recorded program. But part of that program is we have created this live session as well, created this live program from that, which is only for JNCIA, the associate level certification. But even this one, we are going to make sure that we do plenty of practice. We have a lot of labs for this. So to make sure that we become very comfortable in Juniper devices also, in Juno's configuration, Juniper operating system configuration.
Okay, I have a question. Is there different types of JNCIA? Because like I know there's another one I heard that's like AI. Is this class gonna help with that?
So this one is
Like
actually concentrating on only on the routers. So it's the
okay,
JNCIA for Junos. But yes, this is going to be a very, very important starting point, because once you understand this, you become very comfortable with Juniper routers and configuring routing policies, routing protocols. And then taking another course or another level of another associate level program where you learn something new becomes much easier. This is the backbone of all anything else that you can do in Juniper. So having said that, let's get started. Let's understand first of all, what exactly can you expect from this course? What is the structure of this course? How are you going to proceed? And what will you get in this course once you are done, once you completed this course, right? The first thing, it's going to be a 2 hours per session course, and we are going to have one session per week. Now, although I always say this, that the courses that I teach are not time-driven courses; they are topic-driven courses. So sometimes the topics may be bigger, so we might have to go a little bit more than 2 hours. Sometimes the topic will be comparatively smaller, so we might end up before 2 hours as well. So this depends on the particular topic of the day. But yeah, roughly 2 hours. That's the idea. And in these 2 hours, we are going to use a completely hands-on approach. So in Juniper, especially when you are talking about JNCIA based on Junos, it is completely based on routers, Juniper routers, and how Juniper operating system work, how we can configure basic management of Junos, how we can use it for configuring routing protocols, how do we use it for routing policies, any kind of security configuration, basic security configuration. So all these things we are going to learn this program, and everything we do, we will have a lab also for that, so that we can practice it. and we learn it by applying the configuration and concept as well. So although I'm going to make sure that you understand the theory very deeply, very properly up to the JNCIA level, but also we will have a lot of practicals to make sure that whatever you learn, you can implement that as well, right? So how we do this is that the course is designed in a way that we will have every session where we have 2 hour session. Roughly 1 hour will be instructor-led training, means I'll be explaining you some concepts of Juniper, and that will be followed by 1 hour of lab configuration. Again, the times are indicative, means it depends on the topic. We might have a longer theory session comparing to practical, or vice versa. Maybe a small theory session and then more configuration will be involved. So that depends on the topic of the day. But yes, every week we will have some lab for sure to make sure that our hands-on configuration keeps on going and we become consistently more and more confident in configuring Juniper devices. And how are you going to do the lab? So we have an OVA created. So basically what happens is that you need some Juniper routers for practicing JNCIA, and we use EVNG, which is a network emulator. So emulator means that in the backend we use a Juniper MX series routers, real operating system images, and in the front end, of course, it will be a virtualized software. So you will use a browser-based topology where you can click on the routers, you can open the console and start configuring, and routers will be connected to each other. So the topologies, so EVNG is just a shell, right? It's just an emulator. So you can also do it on your own. You can download EVNG from evng.net and procure the images from Juniper somehow, and then copy them into the Juniper, into the EVNG emulating software, which is actually a Linux operating system. You have to license them properly, and then you have to open it into the browser, and you need to create topologies which can cover all the important topics of the JNCIA syllabus, right? So that's a lot of work before you can even start practicing commands and start learning Juniper. So we wanted to remove all these issues from the student side. So we have done everything for you. We already have the event downloaded. We already have the proper MX series routers and QFX series switches images imported into the Juniper, into the EVNG. We have licensed them according to the requirements that how it needs to work inside the virtualized environment. We have created the topologies already, and these topologies are created in a way that we can practice all the important points of the JNCIA curriculum, or the exam topics that we have, the syllabus that we have. So everything is there, and we have compiled everything, all of these things into a single file, which is an OVA file. So all you need from your side is VMware workstation player will be fine, which is freely available, and you download that, you install VMware, and then you can import the OVA file into the VMware. And when you import it and you boot this OVA or EVNG, you have a working set of topologies which you can start configuring right from day one. So that's also a big help when you want to configure or when you want to learn Juniper, because you don't need to worry about anything else. You can directly start practicing the Juniper operating system itself, the Junos itself, right? So that's another big USP of this course. Another thing you will see is that whatever practice or whatever labs I'm going to configure in this live session. So I'll explain you some topic. Let's say today we are talking about OSPF configuration, and then I explain you how OSPF work, how you configure into the Juniper routers, and then we do a lab. So lab, I'm going to do the lab step by step within the live Zoom session, and I'll be explaining exactly what I'm doing. So whatever you learn in the theory session, you will immediately see that we are going to practically implement it as well, and see the results right there. And once I'm done with that, I will be sending you the lab and the solution file or over the email after the session. So you will have the whole week to practice it on your OVA that I sent you, your own copy on your PC. So you are free to do it whenever you want to do it during the week, and as many times as you want to do it. And remember that you have to have a mindset of learning. Means during the week also, don't think that you have to test yourself, you have to remember everything from the class. You are still learning. So when you try to do the lab, that time also feel free to look at the solution file. That's why I'm sending you the solution file along with the question file as well. So look at the solution file as many times as you want. Watch the recordings again of the sessions that we have, and ask me any questions if you have, because we are still into the learning realm. So we are still learning throughout this course. Have the mindset of learning. Whenever you get stuck, be happy, because that means you are going to learn something. You got stuck because you don't understand something or you don't remember something. You're going to check it out, and now you will know it. So that's the learning part, right? That's the that's actually something to be happy about. And of course, we will have Q&A sessions at the end of the class every week. So whatever I cover that week, if you have any questions, you can ask me. So within the session, it will be a short Q&A where you can ask some simple questions. But if you have detailed questions about the lab, like when you are doing it during the week, we have a Facebook group where you can go and post your question along with the screenshots and everything, and I can give you the detailed answer there. And also on the Facebook group, we have a community of our students, so many other people will also see your questions, so maybe they will chip in, they will answer your question, or maybe they were also thinking or they were having the same issue, so when they see your question and my answer to that question, it will help them as well. So it's a great place to ask questions and get answer uh, directly within the realm of your particular lab. You see that this is also another big thing which is missing from many other organizations courses or many other courses available online, because they do have pre-recorded sessions, but when you get stuck, there is no one there to help you, or the help is only over the email, and you might get a reply maybe in a week or something. Maybe sometime you never get a reply after they sell you the course. So we don't want to do that. We wanted to make sure that we are there for our students every time and everywhere. So that's why another thing that you will see, which is unique about this course, is that you get lifetime class recording. So whatever we are going to learn in this course, it will be recorded and it will be available for you to rewatch as many times as you want and whenever you want, right? And the good thing about the lifetime access is that whenever there is an update into the course, let's say Juniper updates the JNCIA and includes something new, we are going to record new sessions and we will make them available to all our existing and previous students as well. So no matter when did you buy the course, even after 5 years, if you see that there is a change, and we are going to include that, and you will be able to access that change or update free of cost, of course. No extra cost will be there. All right, I see a question that how much overlaps with CCNA. The order I should go for CCNA with JNCIA, which means maybe I won't wait for this uh, forever, right? So the idea, basically, what I understood from your question is that how much of this course will be same or common to CCNA, and which one should be your first choice? Like, to what should you concentrate more? So JNCIA also covers a lot of networking basics. So you will say the overlapping part would be the basics of networking, which will be the first few sessions. We'll understand IP addressing, subnetting, OSI model, which are very, very important to understand the basics of networking. So those things will be similar, what we did into CCNA as well. And of course, when it comes to understanding the concept of what is routing, what exactly is a routing protocol like OSPF or BGP. So those logics will be same, but of course that will be the end of it. After that, everything will be unique. I mean, when it comes to configuration, Juniper has a completely different structure than Cisco's default iOS. So there, the configuration part will be completely different, right? And the approach that it takes is slightly different when it comes to applying the policies and security configuration. So I would say CCNA should be your primary choice. You should concentrate on CCNA first, as long as the basics are concerned, and then you can actually do it simultaneously. Once the basics are done, both courses can go simultaneously, because both are re-strengthening the same logic of basics of networking, then basics of routing and configuration of policies. In CCNA we use route maps. In uh, in Juniper we use, or JNCIA we use routing policies. So you will see that there is a lot of common logic they use, just the commands are different. So even if you go simultaneously with both, it's absolutely fine because they are common enough to complement each other, but different enough that you will have fun doing both, and you will not see that you are repeating something again because the configuration will be slightly different, right? So you can see that all these unique approaches, with hands-on approach, having the classes every week, making sure that you always have instructor support. You get all the configuration labs along with the solution file, and you get the lifetime class recording. Uh, this all these things make your journey very smooth, and we make sure that you become very comfortable with JNCIA by the end of this course, right? So speaking of JNCIA, what exactly is the exam topics? What exactly are we going to cover here as far as the exam topics are concerned? So if you go to the website of Juniper, you will see under the JNCIA Junos, uh, the name is JNCIA-Junos, Junos Associate. You will see that there is an exam detail or exam objective section which will tell you what exactly is covered, and also the exam detail, like what is the exam code currently going on, and the length is how long the exam is. There will be how many questions. So 90 minutes exam, 65 multiple choice questions, all these things. Which operating system they are using into the exam. Although this one, even if you are using OS version 19 or even 18, that is fine, because on the associate level, the commands do not change on the basic level. They are same, even if you're using a slightly older operating system as well. So talking about the exam objectives or exam topics, you will see that we start with the networking fundamentals. So we are going to cover some of the very important aspect of basics of layer 2 and layer 3 networking, like what is the difference between a collision domain and broadcast domain, what are the different functions of routers and switches, what is the difference between them, Ethernet networks, Ethernet frame structure, MAC addresses, layer 2 addressing, and how do we use address reservation protocol, IP addressing with the subnet mask, IP for IPv6 both, subnetting and supernetting, decimal to binary conversion, very basic thing but very important part of networking. Longest mesh routing. What happens is that when you receive a packet and you need to send it somewhere, you always look for the longest route matching into the routing table. Longest means with the highest subnet mask, with the more number of ones in subnet mask. So this is also, we'll see examples how exactly it works. Quality of service has something called class of service. We'll understand how that works, at least the basics of it, and the difference between TCP versus UDP, or connection oriented versus connection-less protocol. So network fundamentals, you can see it is pretty similar to what we cover in CCNA as well. So this part is quite common, but it is more Juniper centric, as you can see, but going to be extremely important. Then we move to the Junos fundamentals, like Juniper uses the operating system Junos, and what are the specifics about this operating system. So identify the concepts, benefits, and functionalities of the core elements of Junos, like what is the architecture, control and forwarding planes, routing engine and packet forwarding engine, what is the difference between RE and TFE, transit traffic processing, and exception traffic processing. All these things we are going to cover into the fundamentals part. And then we move to the user interface. So of course, when you want to use the operating system, you have to be very comfortable with the its user interface. Like how do you interact with the CLI? So CLI functionality, different modes. How do we navigate through CLI? How can you use help in CLI? How can you filter the output of the some command, show command, so that you can concentrate on the things that you want to concentrate on? And then we'll see different types of configuration examples. In Junos or in Juniper routers, you will see that there is a configuration which is currently active, also known as committed configuration. And then there is a candidate configuration, means the one which you are currently changing. So whatever changes you are making, they are actually placed into the candidate configuration, and they don't take any effect until unless you commit it to the active configuration. So that actually makes sure that you can check your configuration before committing it, making sure that there are no issues, there is no context level mistakes, right? And in case if you do make a mistake and commit the configuration which was erroneous, you can always revert back to the one of the previous configurations. Actually, Juniper saves last 50 configurations. Last 50 times whatever you changed and committed, those changes were actually are kept into the Juniper routers and switches. So you can always go back. You can always revert back to one of the working configuration before the issue started, right? So we are going to learn all these things as well. Modifying, managing, and saving configuration files. And in Juniper, you can create multiple different files also. So maybe you want to take the backup of the configuration because it keeps on changing. You want to take the backup of the configuration every week. So what you can do is every week you can save the configuration with a name, including the exact date, and that way you will have a database of configurations of every single week. So if you know that something was working, because you see, when I say that you keep 50 configurations within the router, right?
Yeah.
Router's
Can
memory.
so
Sorry.
so like
Yeah.
so that would be something that would differentiate it from like Cisco, right? Because like this you could keep the states,
Yes,
like
yes, you're right. You're
choice
right.
state. Okay.
So in Cisco also, see, one thing which is different from Cisco here is that in especially in the iOS, so there, in Cisco also they created something called iOS XR for the service provider level routers like XR, 10,000 routers or 12,000 series routers. They also started using the same concept of committing the configuration. So there is a candidate configuration and active configuration. But if you're using the normal iOS, like we use in CCNA level, it doesn't have any candidate configuration. So whatever you do in real time, that is also taking effect in real time. For example, if I shut down the interface, it is shut down immediately. But in Juniper, if you shut down the interface, it's not shut down yet. You can see what you are doing, and then you can make sure that you are setting down the correct interface, and then you can commit it to make it active or currently working configuration, right? So that is different. Also, keeping those 50 changes or 50 last committed configurations into the memory is also not something that you don't have in Cisco. So you cannot go back to what I did like five commits ago. There is no commit concept in iOS at all. So there you are right. It's different from CCNA or Cisco. But reverting to the previous configuration, like modifying and managing and saving configuration files, that is something you can do in Cisco also. Like you can save your configuration. You can send your configuration to a file in the flash storage, and you can name the file according to the date. So this is manual work. This is not happening automatically. You are saving the file with a particular date. So that is something you can do in Cisco as well. But what is unique again in Juniper is if you have multiple configuration files, you can always view them, compare them, and load a particular file very quickly so that it becomes active. Like a file which you saved 3 weeks ago, and you know that for last 2 weeks you are having issues in the network, and you want to go back to that file the 3 weeks ago, which was stable. So you can do it very fast. You can quickly compare what will change from the current config if I go back to the that config 3 weeks ago, and you can quickly load the configuration from 3 weeks ago and then immediately activate it. So that makes it unique and different from Cisco, as you rightly mentioned. Also, we will see a very simple example of how we can manage the Juniper routers from a GUI. So you can actually open the management interface called JWeb, where you can manage some of the core and common functionality using the web browser, using a GUI of system. But anything advanced, you should do with the CLI. There are not many options available in the JWeb. Some of the basic things you can do there, which you are going to understand as well, and we are going to check into this course. Then we come to the configuration basics, where we are going to identify the main elements for configuration devices like factory default state, what is the initial configuration, what is the importance of user accounts, because Juniper is a multi-user account capable operating system. So you can create many user accounts. You can create different login classes, which is a very interesting concept we will learn. And you will see you can control what level of access somebody would get. Depends on the class the user is logging in. Different authentication methods we will see, different interface types and their properties. So are you using gigabit interfaces, Ethernet interfaces, fast Ethernet interfaces, or serial interfaces? Depends on that. There are different properties they actually carry. Configuration groups is a very, very interesting concept which allows you to configure the same thing on multiple interfaces or multiple entities at the same time by grouping them into a configuration group. A very interesting concept. We will see it with the practical. We'll also see some additional initial configuration like network time protocol, SNMP, system lock, which is generally common among multiple devices. Like you will have a single network time protocol server, which everyone needs to know about, single SNMP server, single syslog server for system locks. So how do you configure those things? They should be part of the pre-config, which generally you paste on every new device, right? Configuration archival, very important concept, that how do we properly archive? What is the correct strategy for that? Logging and tracing. So if something is not working as expected, you can see the log messages and you can actually start tracing, which is similar to debugging in Cisco, where you can see some real-time messages when something is happening. And rescue configuration. You can create a configuration which you can go back to in case if your system becomes unstable and you want to go to a working configuration. Which you can do manually as well, like I was mentioning earlier, by creating week by week configuration. Or you can have a very minimal configuration, which you can call rescue configuration, and you can always go back to that in case if there are issues with some changes, right? And then we'll come to the operational monitoring and maintenance, means how you can connect your device using telnet or secure shell. How do you use test route or ping to do some troubleshooting? How the operating system installation and upgrade works. Some of the important show commands, monitor commands. How do we read the interface statistics and errors for troubleshooting purpose? How do you power on and shut down a Juniper device? What are the different options there? And in case if you forget the root password, what can you do? How does the root password recovery work? Because remember, root user is the super user, the all powerful user in Juniper. So in case if you forget the root password, how do you recover that? That becomes also important. So password recovery procedure. So you see that in Cisco also we have a password recovery concept. But of course, here the procedure will be completely different. And then we come to the main part, the routing fundamentals. So we are going to understand the concepts of what exactly routing means, what are the importance of traffic forwarding rules, routing tables, routing versus forwarding table. And in Cisco, we have something called administrative distance, which is basically the preference of the routing protocol. Like EIGRP is preferred over OSPF because EIGRP has the AD of 90 versus OSPF has the AD of 110. In Juniper, it is called route preference. You can actually set the route preference so that one routing protocol will be preferred over the other one. We'll also talk about routing instances, which is very similar to the VRF concept that we use in Cisco. But VRF is not just Cisco specific, it's an MPLS concept. So it is supported in Juniper as well. And routing instances allow you to separate the routing tables completely isolated for two different customers or two different clients. We are going to learn static routing here and advantages and use cases of dynamic routing protocol. So you can see that static routing is part of it, not dynamic routing, but we will talk about what are the use cases and what is the benefits of dynamic routing protocols. And we are also going to understand how to configure some dynamic routing protocols. We will cover something like JNCIA plus. We'll go a little bit more than what is needed for the exam.
Okay.
And the last part is the policy part, the routing policy and firewall filters. So in this one, we actually identify the concepts and functionality of routing policy, what exactly routing policy means. So routing policy means using the logic of match and action, where you are going to match some criteria, and based on that criteria, you want to take some action, similar to route maps that we use in Cisco. So here you can use routing policies and we'll understand what are the default routing policies. What is the difference between import and export routing policies? Like import and export from point of view of the router, or is it from the point of view of the neighbor, or is it from the point of view of routing protocol? We are going to understand that. We are also going to understand routing policy flow, like exactly how it is used in what particular order. Effects of policies on routes and routing tables. Especially you will see some routing protocols do not work without a routing policy and some will work without a routing policy. So what is the difference? Then we'll understand the policy structure and terms, and we'll see how we can actually configure them. Different match criteria, match types, and action. As I was telling you, match and action. Match some criteria and take the action based on that. So that will cover our introduction to routing policy. Very, very important, because you will see as you progress in Juniper, in your Juniper life cycle, when you go for the specialist certification or professional certification, and then eventually to expert certification, routing policies are going to be the basic building block of everything that you do, including all the BGP path attribute manipulations and everything else. But you can think of routing policies are extremely important topics. So we are definitely going to do a lot of practicals on these as well. And then comes the firewall. So we'll see that we can also control what kind of communication is allowed through the router by configuring something called firewall filters. So we'll see what is the concept of firewall filter, what is the structure. You'll see it has a similar structure to policies, but the objective is not to change something, but to deny something, basically, right? To filter something out, similar to access control list or ACS that we have in CCNA. Filter match criteria and action, effect of filters on different packets, and a very interesting concept called URPF, or unicast reverse path forwarding. What exactly it does and how can it save us from any kind of packet spoofing attacks that we are going to learn. So you can see that this part is more about security, securing your device. And of course, in Juniper, you have a dedicated firewall called SRX firewall. So we are not going to go much deeper into the security, because it's not a security certification, but it's a good starting point to venture into security later once you understand the basics clearly, right? So we are going to cover everything that is latest and greatest available into the Juniper website, and whatever they are asking us to cover for the exam, so that we become ready for the exam. And every now and then I might include some questions to explain that how exactly they ask question in the exam. It's a multiple choice question exam, MCQ. You can see 65 multiple choice questions. So it's not going to ask you any practicals. So in the exam itself, you will not see any simulation where you have to click on the device and configure them. But going through all these hands-on practicals that we are going to go through for everything, you will have much more confidence in handling even the theoretical questions as well. So that's the logic and that's the idea why we are going to cover all the hands-on approach as well, right? So that's it for today. I just wanted to introduce you to this course and what exactly are we going to cover in this course. So from next week onward, we are going to start with the networking basics, which is actually not Juniper specific, as you can see, but extremely important for understanding the networking basics. So we'll start with the networking fundamentals, and then when we start the Juniper specific topics, then that time you will need the OVA to start configuring the routers, right? So that's it from my side. Let me know if you have any questions.